What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Frenzy podcast. Super excited to be here with you all today. We have a great guest we're excited to introduce. First, we're going to start off with our introductions. Obviously, my name is Benjamin Pedalero. I'm your host. I'm here, as always, with my very special co-hosts, Robert Armstrong and Tyler Master Marino. Boys, how we doing?
Doing swell. Could be even better in an hour if this game goes right.
Crazy that we're watching Tuesday night football and go defense. Just both defenses, go defense.
I know. First time in 70 years, I think they said we're having a Tuesday night football game. And frankly, I'm totally fine with it. I will take one less game on Sunday to have a Tuesday game. Give me football every day of the week. As I said before, we're joined here by a very special guest, a member of our league and longtime best friend, Brandon Eby. Goes by Eby. Eby, how we doing?
Oh, I'm just peachy, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's podcast night, and we're here with the boys, ready to go.
Yeah,
and
good.
We're very happy to have you here. So thank you for making the time.
Oh, of course. Anything for the boys, you know. They say it's on Saturdays for the boys, but I'm feeling more of a Tuesday day.
All right, I feel that as
Is my
well.
camera on? I'm wearing a shirt that says Saturdays for the boys.
I am, and I am wearing a Need to Breathe shirt, so we'll look forward to seeing that on the podcast. Anyway,
Also important.
diving into our Week 5 coverage here. COVID strikes again. I don't think we can use that as a title for the podcast this week, but a lot of schedule changes, which we'll get into when we get into our game review portion of the show. First off, as always, when we have a guest, we're going to start off by playing Studs and Duds. We love this game. First episode was last week. The W did go to Tyler.
Sir.
So we're going to have our round 2 here tonight, just to run over the rules quickly for EB's sake.
Thank you.
There will be 3 players I will list. You'll each have a turn. You'll each have a turn to go first. I'm going to list the player, and you're going to say whether you think they're going to be a stud or a dud for the rest of the season, and then, provide some backup for your response. It's going to be kind of like round robin style, so you get a point for each supporting fact that you give me. If you're the second person to go, you'll get 1 point for a repeat fact, 2 points for a new fact. And same with the third person, they'll get 1 point for a repeat fact, 3 points for a new fact because they're going third. And by that time, there's probably not a lot left over. But if you find something new, then you'll be rewarded. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
All right. So the first player we're going to talk about here, EB, as the guest, you will go first.
Okay, great.
It hurts me to kind of talk about these stats.
Oh.
And is everybody okay?
Good. I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm excited.
Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, this one kind of hurts me to talk about, given the circumstances of this player's big game. Off of an injury to another player, he ended the day with 7 receptions, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, and a rushing touchdown. Obviously, Chase Claypool, EB, stud or dud the rest of the season, and why?
I'm going to have to say that's a dud for the rest of the season. He's got like 13 receptions through 5 games now, which is barely enough, even if you're in a full point PPR league. He does have 4 touchdowns, but like you said, 3 of those receiving touchdowns came in one game, along with a rushing touchdown. So he's got like one big performance out there. He's got 2 receptions, 3 receptions, 1 reception. He's just not being targeted enough, man. And I don't think that the long ball is enough for him to really make an impact all the time.
Okay, awesome. And then Tyler, since you won last time, you'll go last. So Rob, Chase Claypool, stud or dud the rest of the season.
I'm going to have to say stud, and maybe it's not stud in the sense that he's going to do everything like this week. Obviously, Ben was hinting at Deontay Johnson going down, so obviously he's going to get an expanded role this week. But I still think he's young. He's a rookie. I mean, they were taking a risk on him. He wants to make a name for himself. and had a big week this week. Don't forget he had 3 receptions for 88 yards in week 2 and a touchdown. So it's not like this was just like a one-off game. So he has done well. As EB alluded to, he doesn't get a ton of targets, but obviously if they're missing anybody from that wide receiver core, he automatically gets a step up. But I think with that offense and just the way Big Ben's been playing this year, there's enough to go around to make him a stud for the rest of the year and someone definitely worth picking up.
Yeah, obviously I was alluding to Deontay Johnson, who I had started this week, got me a strong 1 reception for -2 yards. So not too happy about that, shook out. But Tyler, that will leave you for Chase Claypool, stud or dud the rest of the way.
I am going to go with a dud. And I'm
Okay.
not going, I'll be kind of like Rob. I won't go to the extent where he's going to be a complete dud. I think you can spot start him as a flex when you're desperate here and there. But for the most part, I think he should be riding the benches. I mean, a 4-touchdown game is insane. He's got the talent to do it. Because 1 on the ground, 3 in the air, that's insane. Any player that gets 4 touchdowns is an absolute star. But there are a lot of mouths to feed in Pittsburgh. I know Deontay Johnson was kind of in and out that game, and he came back from a concussion. So maybe they weren't already planning on getting him super involved. Juju only had 4 catches on 5 targets. I expect him to get way more involved than that. I mean, with Deontay Johnson being a rookie, that helps his stock a lot. Definitely in a keeper league, you want him really, really badly. But I think this is an anomaly. He's rarely gonna get 2 touchdown games, let alone 4 touchdown games. And this is without a doubt. I think it's the best game that any Pittsburgh wide receiver will have all year. But I can't see him breaking 10 points on the regular, so he's a dud.
Well, I think statistically speaking, it's the best wide receiver performance from a Pittsburgh Steeler in like ever in their history.
Fair enough.
I think they kept talking about it because he kept like getting close to it, and they were talking about some other players. But I think it's like the best offensive performance from like any Pittsburgh Steeler ever.
Antonio.
Le'Veon's probably got some games up there, right?
Probably.
Say Le'Veon Bell, and I'm sure Antonio Brown had a game here.
Fantasy-wise, yeah,
maybe
for
not
sure.
4 touchdowns, but
Yeah.
I'm obviously not playing in this game, but I had him as a dud as well. You know, Juju's still there, I think. Deontay Johnson just had a back injury. I don't see him missing any significant time. So obviously he's not going to have this kind of performance every week. You know, Juju's still technically the wide receiver 1 on that team. Deontay Johnson as well as the ideal wide receiver 2. So Chase Claypool's kind of like the 3rd guy on that team when everybody's healthy. So I had him as a dud as well. But Rob, we will let you be the lone eagle the lone wolf on that one.
I hope he's a dud because I have Juju in a league. But, I also have Big Ben, so I'll take either. I guess it works both ways.
All right, we'll see how that pans out. But EB, we're gonna go ahead and slide you to the back of the line.
All right.
So Rob, you'll go first here. We talked about this guy a couple weeks ago. I think he had a strong game, had a touchdown, came from the XFL, and now he's kind of running the receiving core while Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson are out. Obviously, Travis Fulgham this week had 10 receptions, 152 yards, and a touchdown. So, Rob, stud or dud the rest of the season for Fulgham?
Well, I think he's going to be. I'll say stud just again because I look at him a lot like Chase Claypool, as a person who's going to break out this year, getting chances because, like you said, the injuries. But for me, what made me think of it during the coverage, basically when he getting all the touchdowns, I was watching Red Zone, so it kept showing the coverage, and they kept saying how the Eagles and specifically Carson Wentz really wanted to get Fulgham involved in the offense because I really liked him. So obviously it's only week 2 that he's played. He only had three targets for 2 receptions and a touchdown the week before. So he's got back-to-back touchdowns, but obviously this was a much bigger breakout game. So I see him going forward, and as we know, the Eagles have a history of just bad wide receiver cores in terms of just injury luck. I mean, even if everyone was healthy, I'd say even better chance as a stud than Claypool because I know Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are there, but they're on the later side of their careers. Past it, Greg Ward has really been their number 1, so even in a full healthy wide receiver core, I think now Travis Fulgham has a spot more than Chase Claypool. So if I said stud for Claypool, I think Travis Fulgham has a much better chance of being a more consistent stud than Claypool will be.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the player front. I'll share my analysis at the end. Tyler, you will be up next. Travis Fulgham, stud or dud the rest of the season?
I am going to go with a stud. I like the way he's been playing lately. So this past game was an absolute phenomenal game. Rob mentioned he had back to back games with a touchdown. So he's getting more involved in the offense. But the standout thing for me is he had 13 targets last game, and the next highest Eagle receiver only had 6. So that's more than double what they had. And you do have the concern with Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey coming back. But honestly, this late in their careers, they've kind of been in and out of injury problems throughout their careers. I don't think they're capable of posting a 10-152 with 1 touchdown consistent line. And that's 10 catches, 152 yards. But Carson Wentz, if a QB says he likes the guy and wants to get him more involved, you have to trust the QB because they're the one that's throwing the ball to him. Ertz has taken a monster step back from what he was. And I love the way Fulgham's playing. He's got a lot of potential. I definitely like him more than Chase Claypool. Not by a ton. I'm definitely willing to start Fulgham week to week until he proves me wrong. So I'm excited for him. He's a stud.
All right, I like to hear it. And then, Evie, that will leave you to wrap up this round on Travis Fulgham, stud or dud the rest of the season.
I'm going to go with stud as well. I see him, he has 2 receptions the first game, but then bounces up to 10 receptions the second game. Touchdowns in both games. He faces the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Giants again over like a 5-week period. So he's got 3 games in there where he's got like no defense going up against him, really. So I think that being said, plus the combination of Carson Wentz being a fan of him, it's hard to argue that. I definitely see him being a stud. He's got targets. He's got red zone looks too, which is important. I mean, even if he only has 2 receptions the first game, I see touchdown. Second game, I see touchdown. That means they're looking for him in the red zone. So I think that's a big look as well.
All right, awesome. That was a lot there. I was just trying to score you. All right, so we have one player left. Scores: Rob, Tyler, EB. Rob 9, Tyler 10, EB 11 with some really good points in that one right there for Travis Fulgham. So now, Tyler, you'll go first, EB second. Rob, you'll take up the rear for this last player. And you might not see this. You might not have seen this one coming when I was combing through looking for people. I was trying to, again, these players are people who are players who've been fairly quiet throughout this year and just like really made it happen this week. So this player, you might be surprised. He got his first touchdown of the year this year. Hasn't had more than 5 targets so far this year, and has not broken 100 yards receiving this year. This week had 8 receptions, 161 yards and a touchdown. It's Brandon Cooks, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. So Tyler, I said you're going first. Brandon Cooks, stud or dud the rest of the way?
I am gonna go dud crazy. I mean, we've seen in the past he's a long ball type of guy, so the 8 receptions is a lot for him, but he turned it into 161 yards, which is absurd. He finally found the end zone. He already got banged up this year, and he's been like that the past couple of seasons. Deshaun Watson, he's got a couple of young, or at least one young tight end that he likes to target in Akins. And if Will Fuller's healthy too, we never know the status of Will Fuller. If we get a fully healthy Will Fuller, he's going to eat up the targets. And I mean, absolutely eat up those targets. And with one game that's good to me, only one startable game, Brandon Cooks has had 2 catches, 5 catches, 3 catches. That's just grounds that I don't want to touch at all. And Deshaun Watson's a great QB, but that Texans offense hasn't impressed me so far this year, so I'm going dud.
Okay, fair enough. And then EB, on to you. Brandon Cooks, stud or dud the rest of the season?
I'm kind of on the fence about this one, only because, fired the head coach, next week immediately goes off, and so that's a tough call right there. I'm gonna say dud, but like a week to week dud, because I think there are times where he's gonna go off and he's gonna have his looks, because I think they're trying to get him more involved in the offense, and that's kind of clear with the 2 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, 0 targets. I think he was banged up that game, but then bam, 8 targets right off the bat, and so that's something that you've got to look at. And although Will Fuller, he's the one that's really got the legs and goes for the long bombs too, and Brandon Cooks on the other side doing the same thing. So it's kind of hard to match those two up. But like Tyler said, if you got a healthy Will Fuller, it's hard to see Brandon Cooks also being a valuable target in that offense. And you got David Johnson pulling up the back end too, and you got Deshaun Watson, who's he's out there, most athletic guy there is, or one of the most athletic guys there is out on the field most of the time. So it's hard to see that he's going to impact all the time, but I definitely see him impacting some of the time, especially after, like I said, after they fire their head coach. He immediately goes to 8 receptions, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Like, that doesn't just happen because, they want it to they think it's going to happen. It happens because you're trying to get someone involved in your offense.
Yeah, that's some good analysis there. And then, Rob, we'll leave it to you. Brandon Cooks, the rest of the season, stud or dud?
I'm going to go with dud as well. He is capped in concussion. I don't see him playing, and I don't see him playing the rest of the year without at least missing 1 to 2 games. Just with the concussion. He always finds himself in the concussion tent. So injury prone there. The comparison to Will Fuller's already been made. This is the first game of the year since Will Fuller's game that he didn't get a single target because he got injured right at the start, that he didn't have, that Brandon Cooks had more targets. Week 1 was 10 versus 5. Week 2 was the injury. Week 3 was 5 and 5, and then week 4 was 7 and 3. And then this one was the first time that Brandon Cooks had more 12 targets versus Will Fuller's 8. So obviously, Will Fuller is going to be the main reception targets. We've talked about Brandon Cooks being the master of the long ball in this offense. He's going to be more of a hit or miss in terms of if that is going to be there. And the Texans aren't really in a favorable division when it comes down to defenses to play. They have to play the Titans twice, which Titans defense looked actually pretty good. Game we're watching right now against Buffalo. You have to play the Colts twice still because they haven't played them. So there's just 2 tough matchups. They already played the Jags once, and they have to play the Jags again, which is a good. Obviously, it's a game that he's coming off of. So that game, maybe you start Brandon Cooks, but with that division of 2 other good defenses that you still have to play 4 times combined, with the fact that Will Fuller has out-targeted him every single week, I'm going to go with a dud for Mr. Brandon Cooks, Mr. Captain Concussion.
Okay. Before I share the final scoring, I didn't get to share my thought on Travis Fulgham, just to go back a second. You all had him as a stud. I had him as a dud. I'll be the only one, and I'm totally fine to do that because I have faith in Alshon Jeffrey coming back. I think Carson Wentz needs him very badly. Deshaun Jackson is what he is. He'll have some big plays, and he'll have some bust weeks. I think with those 2 coming back, we'll open up the field more for Zach Ertz, and he'll get back to his old form. I don't think he's going to continue to suck the rest of the year. And then that, of course, will open things up more for Miles Sanders, who had a good week this week. So I think there'll be more balance in the offense. And I just, given the experience and the tenure, I don't think Travis Fulgham falls into that offensive scheme. So that's why I have him as a dud. Brandon Cooks, I agree with all of you. I have him as well. There's not really much more to say there. EB, you had it. You had it. And then Rob sweeping in with the division talk just really got me excited.
Ooh, talk dirty to me,
He
Daddy.
got a lot of fun. So Rob's going to get the W this week. EB, I apologize. Great analysis out of you, especially on Fulgham, but Rob really dug in on the Brandon Cooks, so he's going to get the W this week.
Captain Concussion.
If
only had tag names like that.
That'll be
I'm
the
still
caption.
here,
That'll be the hashtag Captain Concussion. Tyler, thank you for playing as well.
Oh, it was a rough outing. I'm bouncing back next week.
Tyler, we just got to keep splitting
hey,
wins. We just got to keep beating the guests, so we're good.
Yeah, that's right. So, EB, what we're doing is we're kind of like pinning the boys, Rob and Tyler, up against the guest.
Yeah.
Somebody just definitely broke their knee celebrating. I just happened to see that on my TV. But anyway.
It looks like Dak Prescott's ankle?
We're trying to Yeah, it's the
Yikes.
boys, Rob and Tyler versus the guest. Ian was not able to win last week either. Tyler won. Rob picked up. I thought you had it in the bag. Honestly, I didn't think there was anywhere else. I didn't think there was anywhere else to go, and then Rob just went down this rabbit hole. So it's
Clutch
his.
Rob.
Hey,
Clutch
good W,
Gene.
Rob.
Hey, you made it. You made it
But the
further than
boys
Ian.
will
Ian
keep-
came in last, so you were the best guest so far.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that. I want to. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No,
What did you say?
I appreciate you letting me get involved in it. That's all. I enjoy the talk.
Of course. So now we're gonna dig into our game reviews from this past week. Want to kind of keep a good pace to this so that we can do some stuff at the end. I want to do as well. We kind of talked about this game last when we recorded. Obviously, we usually record during the Thursday night game, but the Buccaneers at the Bears. Bears take this game 20-19. Brady, 253 yards and a touchdown. Didn't look fantastic. I figured someone was gonna dive into that, but I mean, you could just go and you'd go ahead right into your analysis, Evie. Go ahead.
I mean, it's the Bears. I don't know how you do. I know they're doing well this year, somewhat, but it's just I don't understand how you're a veteran quarterback and you have that type of play like that. That's literally the first thing you should be aware of, and that's. I mean, you got Mike Evans out there throwing Brady a bone every now and again. I'm scared for the Buccaneers. That's twice now that they haven't looked like Brady hasn't looked like Brady. It's just looking a little bit shaky. So it's tough to really get on that train of the Buccaneers are legit. I mean, it's just Brady scares me. That's all I have about it. It's tough.
Yeah, and he's still spreading the ball around a lot. Excuse me. So it's hard to really pick out, his favorite target right now. Evans had the touchdown. Rojo no touchdown, but he did have 106 rushing yards.
Yep.
Cameron Brate was in there. Scotty Miller, I don't even think had a big week this week, but Chris Godwin's coming back for week 6, and I'm super excited. I can finally roll him out into my offense.
It's that lineup.
That's right. But look at the Bears quickly. Nick Foles, 243 yards and a touchdown. David Montgomery had his touchdown. Rob, what do you think about this offense moving forward? Is it going to be more pass heavy, or is David Montgomery going to start to do work, or some mix?
I mean, it was a low-scoring game, and David Montgomery still really didn't have a good game. If you take away that touchdown, he had 10 carries for 29 yards. I mean, that is nothing for a running back where the only other running back was Cordero Patterson, who is obviously using jet sweeps only. So it's not like he has another running back even competing for that spot, and he still didn't make a game of it. So I don't see Dave Montgomery to do much unless they're somehow dominating a game. But even this game, like I said, yeah, they were down early, but then they were up by halftime. And then it remained low scoring, usually trying to waste out the clock and run it in. Really nothing from David Montgomery. Allen Robinson had a good game as well because Nick Foles likes him more. But again, this offense is just so ugly that outside of maybe Allen Robinson, there's really no use to this offense. Good defense, though, stopping that Bucs. But I expect them to be some ugly, low-scoring games with the Bears the rest of the year, and I don't like the offensive options.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, A-Rob had 10 receptions for 90 yards. I mean, in full PPR, that's good for 19 points. Jimmy Graham had the touchdown, but yeah, again, outside of that, nothing really exciting. Tyler, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this game.
Yes, sir. Big question for me is David Montgomery right now. In PPR, I'm not so worried about him because he had 7 receptions this game, which is fantastic for a running back. But in standard leagues, the yards are not there, and he saved his day with a touchdown. So that's something to keep an eye on. He's definitely has way more value in PPR now with Tyreek Cohen done. But he may be a guy you want to look to trade away after cashing in on just this touchdown, because who knows how many more low yardage games he's going to have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he's someone that I think he could go up for the rest of the season. But I just think it all depends on game script. And, obviously with the defense, the Bears might not be playing from behind as much as you think they would watching their offense. But I guess we'll have to see what happens with that. But the next game I want to dig into is the Jaguars at the Texans. Deshaun Watson looked great. They got their first win this year at home, 30-14. Like I said, Deshaun Watson, 359 yards and 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, and Darren Fells. Evie, I want to talk about David Johnson quickly because I know not to have any bias for you, but 17 carries, 96 yards this week, not terrible on the ground, did not have a touchdown. Certainly hasn't shown any fireworks this year aside from week 1 where he looked kind of like his old self. How do you feel about him as your asset the rest of the season?
I don't know that I would consider him an asset, but he's definitely a solid flex play. I mean, he has his moments where he shines. Like you said, 17 rushes, 96 yards, 2 receptions, 7 yards. But, he's a guy that you can start every once in a while. I have him on my team. He's a flex play now and again, but I don't really know that he's really living up to any hype or anything like that. I don't know if he has any gas left in the tank. I mean, I don't know what Bill O'Brien was doing trying to get him into the lineups, and I don't know. But getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins for that man does not seem like it's the way to go. I think it's kind of showing this year. I mean, I don't really think David Johnson's all that. He's got some flex room there and some potential, but he's not really a player that I'd really go for anymore.
Yeah, obviously with the Bill O'Brien firing, there's a lot of questions left with this offense and the operations of the team as a whole. Deshaun Watson obviously made it work this week, but moving forward, there's a lot to figure out.
Well, I think a big part of David Johnson being big for the Cardinals before is he was involved heavily in their passing game too. He caught a tremendous amount of passes out of the backfield, and now I think he's just a running back now. He gets the carries, and that's about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's kind of what I was going to talk about with Chase Edmonds later when we get to that game. Talk about the Jaguars very quickly. Gardner Minshew, 301 yards and 2 touchdowns again, looking great. Rob, I know last week we talked about DJ Chark and, the worry about him, and he was just not even really in this game. The 2 touchdowns went to Keelan Cole and Colin Johnson. So no touchdown for James Robinson. I think that's like maybe his first week this year without a touchdown the way he's playing. But for this offense, I mean, Minshew's spreading the ball around so much. Is there any predictability in starters for this offense? Maybe aside from James Robinson, just given the rushing volume.
Yeah, I would say you could start Gardner. Even if he's not like a top tier quarterback, he's a top tier fantasy quarterback. And then I think James Robinson's still warranted a start after this week. Obviously didn't get the touchdown, unfortunately, but still, even if he only had 48 yards on the ground, he did come out with 5 catches for 22 yards. So obviously in a PPR, that's huge. So he's got value out of the backfield more than just running, which is always nice. Obviously just talking about that with David Johnson. Yeah, however, the wide receiver core is confusing because obviously, Chark's been injured, so you kind of didn't know who was going to step up. Keelan Cole kind of stepped up here and there. Obviously, a lot of people looked at Laviska Shenault, the rookie, to step up. I was big on him at the start of the year. I've dropped him since then. He comes back, has a big game this week. Didn't get the touchdown, but 7 catches, 79 yards. Chark almost had a touchdown. I believe it was just I think it was just out of reach, if I remember correctly. So he was close to. We might be having a different conversation if he has 4 catches, like 20 yards and a touchdown or something like that. We almost have a different conversation here, but it is spread around so much. I mean, I'm just looking at their receiving core right now in front of me. It's like 3 catches, 3, 5, 2, 3, 3, 2, 7. Like there's so many different people catching a ball. 2 tight ends are involved, like 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Like there's so many people catching the ball. There's no predictability in that receiving core or that whole offense outside of Gardner and James Robinson.
So, Tyler, I think it's safe to say that, I mean, none of these guys are anything more than, a wide receiver 3, maybe a flex unless Chark has a good week. But I guess out of these guys, who are you taking? DJ Chark, Keelan Cole, Laviska Shenault. I mean, are you going to roll out any of these guys, aside from what Rob said for this week or any week moving forward for that matter?
I'm still taking DJ Chark 100%. As long as he's healthy. I know that kind of flip-flops back and forth, but a healthy DJ Chark is fantastic.
So then let me ask you this. Would you take DJ Chark or Brandon Cooks moving forward?
DJ Chark.
Okay.
One bad game versus one good game. I'm not too worried. DJ Chark's more talented, I think.
All right. I agree with you. I just wanted to see what your opinion was. Now we'll roll into the Bengals at the Ravens. in Baltimore. The Ravens obviously take this game 27-3. The Bengals offense was very surprising this week. Joe Burrow only threw for 183 yards, no touchdowns. Broke his streak of throwing for 300 yards every week. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, something crazy. Obviously, only a field goal on the day. Not much to talk about with their offense. Joe Mixon, fairly mediocre day. Tyler, I don't know if you want to chip into that, but I feel like we're at another. He was bad. Had him as a buy low, and then had the obviously stunner week last week. Is this another buy low to go back up again, or do you think last week was kind of like a high point? Now we're at a plateau.
I'm still kind of happy with this game, to be honest. He managed just over 90 yards with this, and that's against a great Ravens defense, where they got absolutely smoked. Nobody could do anything on the Bengals, but he managed to salvage his day with over 90 total yards and 6 catches to add on to that. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for running back yardage in total, but tough to say. I think that's a very mediocre game against a good defense. I think it's still kind of a high point for him. He's going to have better matchups in the future than the Ravens, but I think I'm still trying to trade him away.
Okay. And then, Evie, I want to talk to you about the Ravens, obviously putting up the 23 points. Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews had the touchdowns through the air. Lamar Jackson, playing the way we would expect him to. The ground game, though, horrifying.
Yeah.
Mark Ingram had 11 carries for 57 yards. J.K. Dobbins, obviously not, non-factor this week. What do you feel about this backfield moving forward?
They had 3 different running backs try and run the ball. Ingram, Edwards, and Dobbins. Dobbins had 1 rush for 34 yards, and they just scrapped him after that. I don't know that that's smart moves, and I just don't see a lot of improvement coming from the backfield at all. No touchdowns at all. There's not a lot of yardage there from anybody that's a running back. It's hard to see consistency and actually wanting to start somebody on that backfield.
Yeah, I agree. And then Rob, what do you kind of see moving forward as a J.K. Dobbins owner? Do you kind of think there's going to be a shift of power here? Or do you think it's just going to be a backfield to avoid?
Backfield to avoid, and if you were to start one, I'm honestly 100% on Mark Ingram. The only reason J.K. Dobbins is on the team is because the sheer chance in the offseason I hear Mark Ingram retires or goes to a different team or something like that. I have no faith in him ever cracking my lineup, even on a bye week. At this point, I have just better options now. So overall, I'm avoiding the backfield altogether because of Gus Edwards' emergence of getting 7 carries, almost catching up to Mark Ingram in carries. So the fact that we have 3 now, even Mark Ingram, I just am not looking at. So I'm overall avoiding it. And as a J.K. Dobbins owner, I say owner, I might not be an owner soon. So
JK.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of tough sailing for that backfield. It's kind of like the Rams or the Rams backfield for me. Definitely fine to avoid them at all costs. Next game I want to dig into is the Panthers at the Falcons, and Matt Ryan just continues to look horrible, and it's very frustrating being a Calvin Ridley owner. Although Ridley was able to salvage out a good day just on sheer volume. This week was kind of the Todd Gurley show. 14 touches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler, talk to me about this offense moving forward. Obviously, no Julio this week. Russell Gage, non-factor. Hayden Hurst, non-factor. Just terrible week from him. What do you feel about this offense moving forward?
I'm still feeling pretty good because the 2 main guys that played this game, Todd Gurley and Calvin Ridley, they feasted. They each had over 100 yards. 100 yards. Todd Gurley added a touchdown, and that's all with Matt Ryan playing bad and no Julio Jones. Julio Jones, I think, is gonna benefit everyone except for those depth guys like Russell Gage and maybe Hayden Hurst as well. But I think for the starters, he's gonna absolutely skyrocket Matt Ryan's value. Maybe take a little bit away from Ridley and just give more touchdown opportunities to Todd Gurley since Julio Jones can never score a touchdown for whatever reason. But I still like this
Yeah.
offense. I'm not jumping ship at all.
No, definitely not jumping ship. And I, as a Ridley owner, I need Julio to come back to draw all the primary coverage so I can go back to 30-point weeks out of Ridley every week. But we'll talk about the Panthers quickly here. Teddy Bridgewater, 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mike Davis had that receiving touchdown. Continues to be a good filler for the Panthers until CMC comes back. Tyler, I'm going to go back to you right here quick because you're obsessed with talking about Robbie Anderson. So 8 receptions, 112 yards. DJ Moore had the 5 receptions. So, I mean, who are you taking out of these two moving forward? I think it's kind of hard to tell. They play different roles, but which one? I ask you this every week, but has your answer changed moving forward?
I still love Robbie Anderson. He's moved up to the number sixth ranked wide receiver, and he essentially has 4 games with over 100 yards. He had 1 game with 99 yards.
Which that's not 100.
Yeah, I know. But 4 straight games. Well, 4 out of 5 games of basically 100 yards. He's a long bomb guy. He's still getting targets like crazy. He's had 8 catches the past 2 games, and he's only found the end zone in his first game. If he can just turn one of those long catches into a touchdown, which we've seen it in the past, he's very capable of that. He's going to move up even more. He'll be a top 5 wide receiver, no problem. And Teddy Bridgewater seems to look his way more than DJ Moore. So I am in love with Robbie Anderson.
I know. We have this discussion every week. Next game I want to look at is the Raiders at the Chiefs. I know I've been shooting out texts about this game all week because I was still thoroughly annoyed at how it played out. The Raiders take this one at Arrowhead 40-32, doing what they quote as shocking the world. We'll start with the Raiders. Derek Carr, 347 yards and 3 touchdowns to 3 different people. Henry Ruggs, Nelson Aguilar, who that's like his 2nd touchdown this year, so maybe he needs to be on teams apparently. And then Darren Waller. Rob, talk to me about this offense. Josh Jacobs also had the 2 touchdowns, to get his bounce back from last week. But what do you feel about these guys moving forward?
Yeah, I think I think no matter what, it's gonna be a good offense, especially fantasy wise, as we talk about. I don't know how the Raiders will play out the rest of the season. They've looked really good, obviously, in a game like this, but then the Patriots kind of made them look pretty bad, and they only got. But again, fantasy wise, they got a bunch of points because they got points at the end of the game. And that's when we were talking about Hunter Renfrow a lot. So a lot of talent there. Yeah. Waller, obviously, I think is a top tier fantasy tight end. Showed it again to that game with a touchdown and 48 yards on 5 receptions. Ruggs stepped up big. Obviously, only had 2 catches, but it's 118 yards. That's insane. Clearly, just gonna be that deep threat. I mean, they literally drafted him because he had the fastest 40-yard dash time, I think, in NFL draft history. So that was literally the only reason they drafted him. So they're getting the use out of him, though, because he can run down the field really fast. But yeah, no, Aguilar is a big surprise there. Didn't drop the ball, which is crazy. But no, yeah, I think the offense in general is just...
touchdown.
Yeah, no, and he's actually... I think we talked about it last week, but he had I think he had a bunch of receptions. I don't have his stats up right here, but I know he's had a bunch of receptions of the year. He had 4 receptions all on 4 targets, which means he didn't drop one of the targets. So, like, he's actually done so much better and probably making Eagles fans even more mad, as we just talked about how they've had so many injuries and that we're talking about a guy who played in the XFL as their number 1 receiver right now. Okay. So it makes Eagles fans pretty mad, but no, he's looked really good. So I think this offense is just firing on all cylinders, which always then helps. If the offense is doing that well, then obviously it's going to help someone like Josh Jacobs, who gets the advantage of them being in the lead and then or just splitting a play and running it a lot. And obviously he got 2 touchdowns on 77 yards. So I really like that offense. It's becoming a very fruitful fantasy offense. And you can have a couple different players in there and still feel like they're not taking points away from each other.
Yes, fruitful offense with patience. I'll add to the end of that. I want to talk about the Chiefs, though, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Patrick Mahomes, 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, another monster game, 8 receptions, 108 yards and a touchdown. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 10 carries for 40 yards. Like, what's going on with that? I was so annoyed watching this game, and I've said this to you guys multiple times this week, how Mahomes was trying to make everything – look, he's great. He's a great quarterback, had a great week for the most part. But he was trying to, like, make unreal things happen. Everything was trying to be a highlight reel. Yes, the play calling wasn't there. Clyde only had 10 carries, but they lost. And I'm not the only person that said this, that they lost because of the play calling, because Clyde only rushed 10 times against the worst rush defense in the league, mind you. That's my 2 cents on that. But Tyler, I want to hear your thoughts on this because you don't have as much bias in this as I do.
Yeah, I mean the big boys in KC are still feasting. That's Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. They each scored again this week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't touching the ball enough. I was hoping he'd get even more involved in the passing game. And I mean, this week was pretty solid, 3 catches for 40 yards. But I want to see him get way more involved. Hopefully, break a couple of those. And everyone isn't the biggest fan of Casey's O line, but they set up a lot of nice screen passes and stuff. They're good at doing that, but they do it to like everybody on the team, and it's not just the running back.
Yeah.
I'm not panicking about Clyde because Andy Reid's a good coach. He'll see the talent in him. He'll start getting him the ball more when he needs to. And Casey's going to be closing out games more often than not. So Clyde is going to be getting a lot more than 10 carries. I think this is going to be one of his worst games of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm not worried about it either. Just for the record, it was just frustrating watching the game script this week for him. I think it'll change as well. Like I said, as an owner, I'm not worried, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Next game I want to dig into is the Cardinals at the Jets. Cardinals take this one 30-10. We'll talk about the Jets offense. No, I'm sorry. I can't make that joke anymore. I've done it too many times.
Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, Jamison
right?
Crowder. Yeah, that was one of my main notes. Jamison Crowder had 8 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. We saw Joe Flacco this week, so that was something. I'll just run through the Cardinals quick as well. Kyler, 380 yards and a touchdown, looked pretty good this week. Kenyon Drake, first touchdown of the year, rewarding those who may be still patiently waiting on him. Not sure if there is still anyone doing that. Chase Edmonds did have the touchdown as well as 5 receptions for 56 yards. DeAndre Hopkins with a very DeAndre Hopkins-esque touchdown, which we've come to expect over the years. So, Eby, haven't heard from you in a few minutes here. Talk to me about this Cardinals offense, specifically around Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds.
They're rolling a little bit. I mean, this is a good sign, I guess. There hasn't been much progress from either one of them throughout the season for the most part. Kenyon Drake finally making a breakout game and getting a touchdown under his belt. But really, I mean, it's the Kyler Murray show, if we're being honest. So that's just the way. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins on the other side, that's really where it's at right now. There isn't much of a backfield, to be honest.
Yeah, and then looking forward, obviously this week they have a fairly nice matchup, but then next week they have Seattle, who's also a good matchup for throwing as well, and then the bye. So I think they can, especially Kyler and D Hop are going to have a big week in the next couple of weeks. Rob, I also want to talk about Christian Kirk as well. He was obviously a bigger name last year and not really been much part of the offense this year, but given they're playing Dallas and Seattle, two of the lower end pass defenses in the league. How do you feel about Christian Kirk moving forward?
I think he's cemented as like the number 2 guy going forward. Obviously, Larry Fitz. The fact that he's still playing is just amazing. So it's okay for him to be the number 3. But obviously, they also have Andy Isabella, which we have to show some love because he's from UMass. So have to show some love there, and I hope he's more involved in the offense. Obviously, Larry Fitz could be his last year. I mean, at this point, it's impossible to predict that. But no, I think Chris Kirk's the number 2 guy. Is there enough to go around, especially because after DeAndre Hopkins, they do very well to spread the ball around? I mean, Christian Kirk, 5 catches, Chase Edmonds at the backfield, 5 catches, Larry Fitz, 4, Isabella, 2, and then Darnell Daniels, 2. So, they do spread the ball around after Hopkins. Hopkins is going to eat every week. So I don't know if there's enough value there for Kirk in, fantasy leagues like ours. Maybe deep leagues, you just have him because these like you said, the defenses coming up are just so bad that there's so much offense to go around. But I think the offense is too spread to really rely on Kirk. But if they're going to put up 4 or 5 touchdowns in a week, then yes, he's probably going to have a good week, which you could see over the next 2. But after that, it'd be a spot start for me for Christian Kirk until he shows more.
Yeah. Yeah, because then they have the bye and then Miami. Hold on.
Jets just released Le'Veon Bell.
That's why I said hold on.
Really?
I love those days. This happened with who was it? Just happened with in the offseason as well. That you get the notification right in the morning that they're actively trying to trade him, and then by nighttime, if they haven't traded him, he gets released. I mean, how active could you be trying to trade him?
On pod, you have to stop it and announce breaking news, fellas. Come on.
That's what we did.
Ben goes, hold on, and I just yell it. I think that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's good enough as well.
I was gonna say he was a potential buy low target for me just in case he gets traded to a team.
I've sent Damani multiple trade offers in the past couple weeks for him, and I think he's kicking himself. I'm happy as of right now, unless he gets signed somewhere. We'll monitor
Going to
that.
the Cardinals.
I wouldn't be surprised actually.
Yeah, right. Imagine. Anyway, we'll keep you all updated on that. Next game is the Eagles at the Steelers at Heinz Field. Steelers take this one 38-29. We'll start with the Steelers first. Carson Wentz, 258 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis Fulgham, obviously we talked about him, 152 yards and a touchdown. Miles Sanders had a breakout game this week. Had the long touchdown run, ended the day with 2 touchdowns. They looked good. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Sanders looked good. Zach Ertz, 1 reception for 6 yards, continues to be a disappointment in fantasy. Carson Wentz, despite his stats not looking great, keep bearing in mind that he's missing, again, as we said, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. EB, this offense moving forward, I know I've kind of made my case a couple times. We talked about it with Fulgham, but what do you see out of these guys, this offense specifically, with the addition of these 2 guys coming back, and how the field to kind of be spread with the addition of them?
I mean, with the addition of them, Fulgham already having some breakout games coming out now too. I think it runs the options that he's needing, and I think it's going to open up the run game a lot more too. I think you're going to see bigger games out of Sanders, and that's just what comes when you have the passing game working for you. Having those extra options to throw to, it's probably going to limit a lot of his interceptions. Now that he's got some reliable receivers, and like you said, Zach Ertz really underperforming, but that's because who else are these defensive backs, these linebackers going to guard? There's nobody else. But now Fulgram's catching the ball, but there's nobody else they're going to guard besides Zach Ertz. So I don't really see I don't see that working for him now, but once these guys come back, I think you're going to see a lot more production out of Zach Ertz.
Yes, I agree with you, and I want to agree with you as well. So we'll end that there. Steelers, however, obviously we've talked about the tremendous day Chase Claypool had and the implications that has on the rest of the players moving forward. Big Ben, 239 yards and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, all 3 of them went to Chase Claypool, so there's not really much more we need to talk about in this game. Next game I want to dig into is the Rams at the Washington Football Team. In Washington, Rams take this one 30-10. Start with the Rams first. Jared, yeah. Why am I drawing a blank? Jared Goff. Yeah, that's his name. Okay.
You had it right. You just doubted yourself.
I did doubt myself, and I don't know why. Anyway, 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had a rushing touchdown. Darrell Henderson had 2 touchdowns on the day, which is super frustrating for me because I had him like the past 3 weeks. Cam Akers returns 9 rushes for 61 yards. Rob, what do we – again, I mean, we've talked about this backfield countless times, but, after the performance this week, how do you feel about them?
As of now, the only rosterable player is Darrell Henderson because of the work out of the backfield in terms of catching. Malcolm Brown did have 1 catch, but it was for -6 yards, so not exactly a big day for him out the backfield. But yeah, no, 15 rushes for Darrell Henderson, 9 for Cam Akers, 8 for Malcolm Brown. That's just way too spread out from 8 for a team that's not even that good running. They're more of a passing team, as we know. We all love their wide receivers on fantasy. That this just wasn't a good rushing team since Gurley left anyways, so the fact now that it's split is just not something I'm looking at going forward. But Henderson seems to be the main receiving back, so in a PPR league, and if you get a touchdown out of him, it's definitely worth having on your roster still. EB, I know you just benefited from that picking him up right before the game, so yeah, I would say overall Henderson is worth having on the roster. The other 2 I'm waiting on. Akers, obviously being the rookie, has the most upside going forward, but obviously fantasy, unless you're in a legacy league, it doesn't really matter what the next year's upside is.
I'm seeing goal line status from Henderson right now. That's what he's looking like. Looks like a goal line back.
I saw that before, and then he did nothing for me. So, I mean, I wish nothing but great things for him. but I will be steering clear of the Rams backfield moving forward. Washington football team, though, not a big performance. Big story here is the return of Alex Smith. First game since 2018 from the horrific leg injury. Gets a rushing touchdown, but that's pretty much all the football team offense does here. Rob, I feel like just for some reason, this guy makes me think of you. So talk to me about Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, and what's going to happen moving forward.
I hope that Dwayne Haskins somehow comes back. Obviously, they can't do it next week, or else the coach Ron Rivera will look like an idiot if he brings Dwayne Haskins. Obviously, It came out before the game that the reason they sat Dwayne Haskins wasn't actually performance based. It was because he wasn't reading and studying film and stuff like that, and preparing the proper way as a quarterback should play. So I have no clue what's going to happen between the other two. It just seems like they've written off Dwayne Haskins at this point. So between the other two, I have no clue. Neither look particularly good. However, their offensive line isn't particularly good, and Aaron Donald exists. So it was never. I cannot believe they actually even put. I know they had to because of the concussion, but I can't believe they left Alex Smith in just to get destroyed over and over again. Aaron Donald had 4 sacks himself. Jordan, what is it? They had 8 sacks on the day. So the fact that Alex Smith is alive is a really good thing at this point.
PTSD.
So
I'm sure he's plenty sore this morning.
yeah, the fact that he's still healthy is good. Yeah, I mean, he's older. I guess Kyle Allen technically has the better upside because he's still younger, showed something in Carolina. But I really have no prediction on who they're going to start. And either way, it doesn't look good for Terry and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, so to me, it seems like Haskins is squandering the opportunity he has. He was only drafted like 2 years ago. So, I'll kind of open this up to anyone that answers, pending there was, how Washington does the rest of the way. Should they expend significant draft capital to get another quarterback this year, or do you think, bearing in mind that they just drafted Haskins, it was like what?
It was last year, yeah, last year's rookie.
Yeah, this 2 drafts ago. Yep. But by the time the next draft comes, but I mean, is that worth it, or do you think they pull it together, or go with one of these other guys, Rob, Tyler, Eby? Anybody can answer.
So I'll jump ship on Dwayne Haskins. A guy like that's showing attitude issues at that young of an age, I wouldn't be shocked if they immediately move on.
I think because of his young age. I think his young age makes it not okay, but understandable of why he acts like that. He's immature. He doesn't really know what he's doing in the NFL. And I think that get a better offensive line. I mean, Alex Smith knows it. Get a better offensive line. Give him some time, and I'm sure he'll want to play for the Redskins or the Washington football team, my bad.
Yeah, you're canceled. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. Next game I want to dig into is were you going to say something,
Le'Veon Bell just tweeted out the prayer emoji. And Adam Schefter retweeted it. Sounds like feelings were mutual.
Yeah, we're all getting the same. Man. We're all getting the same updates.
Yeah, because we all have the same notifications on. But it was just funny to see. I just started laughing, so that's why.
Yeah, no, it's all good. The Dolphins at the 49ers. This game was kind of a shocker to me, honestly. I had the 49ers defense. I mean, obviously the Dolphins had big play potential, but I did not see them putting up 43 points in San Francisco. Fitzmagic, 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. Myles Gaskin had a touchdown. For the 49ers, Jimmy G started, and then C.J. Beathard came in. To be quite frank, I don't know why. Rob, I don't know if anybody knows why that switch happened.
Well, because Jimmy Garoppolo threw 2 picks that were like the easiest throws of all time, and missed multiple receptions, like easy receivers before that, and now they're looking to move on from him as of today.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I was in Vermont yesterday. Like I said before we started, I didn't get a whole ton of time to dig into that kind of stuff. But yeah, obviously, sounds like not a good performance. So you mean move on like completely?
Yeah, I was reading something today that they're like. They think it's time to just move on from him altogether. So, like, I don't know what that means, draft another quarterback. I mean, their team is still good enough that I think they're going to put up a good record, so they're not going to really have, like, unless there's trades I don't know about that they have picks, they're not going to have a good pick to go get a quarterback. So I don't really know how they're going to move on from him. But, yeah, they're not happy with his performance, to say the least. Especially when they don't even have Nick Mullins to put in. They had to go to C.J. Beathard.
Yeah.
Beat hard, yeah.
Next game we'll dig into is the Giants at the Cowboys. Eby.
Tough.
What's up,
Tough
man?
for all of us, honestly. That had to win.
Cowboys take this one 37-34 at home. We'll start with the Cowboys. Actually, we'll start, I guess, with the most important aspect of this game, Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
heartbreaking injury.
Yeah.
Prayers out to him for a speedy recovery. Although he had surgery, looked like it went well, and he'll be back 4 to 6 months. So pretty much by, he'll be good to go for next training camp, provided things are back to normal by then. Hopefully, he did have a receiving touchdown, before his injury, which was his first receiving touchdown of his career, which I thought was obviously kind of cool, I guess. But
Yeah.
Tyler, moving forward, Andy Dalton, is obviously at the helm. Although I think they signed another quarterback today. I didn't see who it was though. But assuming at least for Week 6, Andy Dalton's going to be the starter. So how do you feel about this offense? My feeling is it's going to be, obviously Zeke's going to get even more volume than he already gets because it's Andy Dalton. But Tyler, what do you have to say about that?
I still feel pretty good about offense. I think one of the more competent quarterbacks with the Bengals. He's on a much better offense, actually more than kind of see what. Definitely, receivers take a major hit because even if Mahomes good, he's not going to be as Dak Prescott was. The big bet, most Ezekiel Elliott, they're definitely going to run the ball a lot more. CM had a major break, and he's topped over yards again, but I expect that up for sure. Connection that Gallup and Dick had that last game on that final or on one of those drives. It's not going to be there anymore. Amari Cooper horrible, but I think he's going to bounce back from it. All in all, receivers take a major hit here, though.
Yeah, and like I was saying, Zeke had the 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is just like a classic Zeke game. I feel like that's the performance we've come to expect. Same with guys like CMC, Alvin Kamara most weeks, although he didn't have a touchdown this week. But it's just like that workhorse heavy volume, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards a week. I was looking at it this morning. I think Zeke's averaged like 19 fantasy points a game, like pretty much 20 points every week, which is great. He hasn't had like a huge boom week either, like nothing up in the 30-point range, but he's just like good for 20, 22, 23 points every week. Giants offense put up a good fight, 34 points to the Cowboys 37. Devonta Freeman and Evan Ingram with the rushing touchdowns. Daniel Jones again struggled. Darius Slayton fairly quiet on the day. Rob, talk to me about this offense moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know if Devonta Freeman has become obviously solidified himself as number one running back in that offense, and if he keeps getting used out of the backfield catching, I like him going forward as an option. But again, it is the Cowboys defense. I don't want to take too much away from this and say like, oh, this is like a newly changed Giants offense. It is the Cowboys defense. We're talking about the worst defense in the league at this point. So yeah, good day for them, but I wouldn't expect it going forward. At least Darius Slayton got his yards and catches. And Devonta Freeman kind of solidified himself fully as the only real running back option that I know obviously when Barkley went down, we weren't sure how it was going to go. But he solidified himself there, so I think it's good for him and good for Slayton that he still did well. But yeah, overall, I'm not a huge fan of this offense just because I think this is a one-off scenario, or two-off, I guess, because I got to play him again. But
yeah. Evie, we apologize in advance if we hurt your feelings.
Oh, no, it's okay, man.
You've come to accept it?
I've accepted. The Cowboys suck, man.
Stephen A. Smith had no laughing video this week. It was all business, obviously based off the Dak injury. We will echo that as well. Next game is the Colts at the Browns. The Browns are 4-1. I mean,
sneaky 4-1.
What world do we live in?
Dang. Baker Mayfield, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. Odell threw a pass. I mean, it seems like they're trying to have anyone play quarterback except Baker Mayfield. Colts put up 23 points. Jonathan Taylor had a touchdown. Tyler, kind of talk me through their offense. And, Jonathan Taylor has been, he's been good, but he hasn't been great. Had the touchdown this week. How do you view him moving forward with, Nyheim Hines kind of in that supporting role?
To me, Jonathan Taylor is still like a high-end RB2 for me because he's going to get the volume for sure. And a young guy like this, he's got talent. I want to see if the Colts can put it together. They got a good O-line led by Quentin Nelson. I'm not too concerned about them. They're not passing the ball very well. They got to start leaning on Jonathan Taylor more to close out games and honestly win games altogether. So I'm definitely sticking with him. Maybe a potential buy low target.
Yeah, for sure. And then, sorry, I was distracted. I was trying to see who scored that touchdown.
Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu Smith. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Eb, did you start him?
Jonnu.
Yes, I did. I started 2 tight ends this week.
Hey, proud of you.
Thank you.
Second to last game we'll look at from the early or afternoon slate yesterday is the Vikings at the Seahawks. Another close one. Seahawks take this one at home 27-26. Russell Wilson, 270 yards, his standard 3 touchdowns that we're seeming to expect every week. DK Metcalf threw up 2 touchdowns, or I guess brought in 2 touchdowns. On the Viking side, Kirk Cousins looked pretty good, 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, 2 touchdowns. Obviously big story here, Dalvin Cook going down with the injury. And his backup Madison coming in for 20 yards and 112 touchdowns. I don't want to talk about him too much.
Whoa, that's a fantasy game.
Excuse me. 20 yards, 20 carries, 112 yards. I can't talk. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to talk about this too much right now is what I was going to say because I want to dig into this in the next bit. Obviously, some significant implications with Dalvin Cook going down depending on how long he'll be out. But Rob, you could talk to me about this offense anyway. Kirk Cousins, definitely looking like a streamer option, and then Alexander Madison coming in for Dalvin Cook. What do you, without going too deep, given the next bit, what do you think about this moving forward?
It just seems like they like running the ball, and Dalvin Cook is just a prototypical running back. So if you can fit in another running back, they don't have to be dynamic like a Kamara or a CMC. As long as it's like a running back that can bull rush. Essentially, they'll slide you right in this offense. Good offensive line. Madison is a good fit for it as well because he has a similar style to Cook in terms of the way they run. So, yeah, they can slide him in just as easily depending on how lengthy the injury is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and like I said, we're going to talk about that in the next bit. But last game, we'll talk about Sunday Night Football. Chargers at the Saints in the Dome. Go with the Chargers first. Justin Herbert, 264 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kid's looking magnificent. Mike Williams, 2 touchdowns on the day. Someone I want to kind of talk about in a little bit as well. Looking at the Saints, Drew Brees had 325 yards and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown. Talk about Drew Brees of old. As I said earlier, Alvin Kamara, no touchdown, still productive as we expect on the week. Tyler, talk to me about the Chargers offense, specifically around Justin Herbert's great performance and Mike Williams and what we could expect out of him moving forward.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Justin Herbert spread the ball out a little more than he has in the past. With Keenan Allen going down in this game, Keenan Allen scored the first touchdown of the game and then left with a back injury. But great to see Mike Williams get involved, and he looked like a beast out there, just going up, grabbing every ball that was in there, getting every catch that was contested. And hopefully Justin Herbert will start to look his way more with these long passes. But the 2 touchdowns game is great for Mike Williams. If Keenan Allen misses any time at all, Mike Williams is going to immediately turn into like a wide receiver too. Even if Keenan Allen comes back, he's kind of on the edge of being a wide receiver 3. He's going to have these boomer bust type games. But I'm definitely excited for that. Justin Herbert's value has gone way up. He's definitely a guy you can roster now and definitely start him. And then I'll talk about the backfield too because they kind of split carries between Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson. And Justin Jackson had 15 rushes as opposed to Kelly's 11. And to me, Justin Jackson was way more efficient and he got more involved in the passing game. So that's fantastic to see. And I picked up Justin Jackson in a league over Joshua Kelly, and I'm excited. He looks like the guy. I think that he's healthy now. Even when Eckler comes back, Justin Jackson will be more involved than Kelly will.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's another guy I want to talk about in the next bit. Last game of the week, it's Tuesday night, obviously, some COVID cancellations, postponements. The Bills at Tennessee. about to head into the fourth quarter. Titans are up 28-10. We'll dig into this game on our Thursday podcast. Now, next bit I want to move into here. Not too long, but I want to talk about our top waiver wire pickups for the week. This is something we're incorporating for the first time that we think is really crucial we get to you guys. Rob, I'm going to start with you. So we're going to do obviously each position. Who is your number one running back ad, and why is it Alexander Madison?
I was gonna say, if you asked me, I thought you were gonna just ask like which was my number one pickup, and it was gonna be Alexander Madison anyways. Obviously, because I have the bias of the fact that I'm a Dalvin Cook owner, kind of have to go get him. It looks like Dalvin Cook's most likely gonna be just next week, and then they have a bye, so it's 2 weeks. So hopefully that gives him 2 weeks to get healthy and comes back after that. But even then, 1 week of Alexander Madison is going to basically be the value of having Dalvin Cook that week, because he has no backup. And like I just had mentioned 5 seconds ago, they kind of similar play style, and that offensive line is so good, and their game script is going to be to run the ball no matter what. It didn't change a bit at all. The second Cook went out, they trusted Madison a lot, and they just kept going for him. So yeah, I think it's got to be. I have some other pickups, but I know we're gonna get to that. But that was my only even running back pickup at all. So yeah, no, he's definitely the number one guy, and he's still available in over 50% of leagues. So I think he's only rostered in 41% as one of the best handcuffs in the league.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then Tyler, I'll go to you next. Who's your running back? Obviously, try and pick someone different if you can.
Yep. I will go with Damian Harris. I don't believe we really talked about him last week because I believe we did the show during one of the Pats games. But to me, he's looking like the Pats have showed faith in him. He's looking like the guy. He's going to be the starting running back for the Pats. He had 17 touches for 100 yards last time he was out. He's definitely going to be the goal line back with Sony Michel out now. Maybe next to none for passing work, to be honest, with Rex Burkhead and James White getting all those. But Damian Harris still available in 60% of leagues. I picked him up in every single league last week, and I would absolutely put a claim in for him. Spend plenty of your fab budget. I like him season long a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And then, EB, who's your running back for the week? Again, you can do a repeat if you have other analysis, but preferably somebody different.
In light of the news, I think Frank Gore might be a target now. He's
Fair
obviously
point.
about to pick up a lot of carries. He's about to, make his impression in the backfield. He had 9 carries for 30 yards last week. So I think with Le'Veon Bell gone, he's going to be the workhorse for that backfield.
All right, my guy was obviously Alexander Madison, going fourth, so I'll give myself a pass. Rob obviously explained why, depending on how long Dalvin Cook is out for, even if he's out for 1 week, I'm still, throwing a huge chunk of my fab budget at it. Given the way this season's going, I'm more looking in the short term, like do what I got to do to win this week. And obviously Alexander Madison's going to win you a week if you're able to get him, depending on obviously who you're playing and what the rest of your team looks like. So, EB, you went last there. I'm going to do a quick turnaround. I'll let you go first. Who's your wide receiver one pickup, and why is it Chase Claypool?
It's not Chase Claypool.
Okay, that's fine. You can leave me stand corrected. Who's your wide receiver one pickup?
I'm gonna go Emmanuel Sanders for next week.
Okay.
I just think he's gonna be the go-to guy right now. I don't want to say this and be wrong, but I think Michael Thomas may have gotten suspended or something like that.
He got in a fight in practice. That's why he missed this week.
Yeah.
So he got benched for 1 game.
Yeah.
I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to be the go-to guy just because of all of that confusion back there. And I mean, he's put up some numbers this year anyways. He's got 15, and 24 the past 3 weeks. So, I mean, he's putting up some production, and he's got catches, and he's got yards. I think he's definitely a good go-to for like a flex option, maybe a wide receiver 3.
All right, yeah. And then Rob, you went first. So, Tyler, who is your wide receiver pickup for this week?
I will go with Travis Fulgham. We talked about him earlier in the studs and duds. I have him as a stud. I have him better than Chase Claypool, to be honest. I think he's could emerge as the number one target for this offense, even with Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson still in there. If when they come back healthy, I mean, Carson Wentz talked him up. That's always fantastic to hear. He led the team in targets, more than doubled the next guy, so he's got a bright future. We haven't seen a lot of him, to be honest, even though he's bounced around teams, but he's a guy to keep an eye on. I'm definitely putting it. I think he's my top claim for the week, even though unless you're desperate for running backs.
And then Rob, who is your waiver wire pick or your wide receiver pickup for this week?
Ben, I feel bad that I took Madison from you, obviously, in the first one, so I can leave you, Mr. Claypool, because I did have another wide receiver on mine that I was looking at, and he's only available in 52% of leagues, so it's not like a crazy go out and buy, but it is Henry Ruggs. Had a good first week of the season. Obviously, rookie this year, as I mentioned when we were talking about this game. He's a rookie, fastest 40-yard dash time in NFL draft history. Then kind of slow after that, then got injured. So we only saw him really the first 2 weeks of the season, then got injured. So don't really know too much about him, but obviously coming back with 2 targets for 118 yards, clearly going to be the deep threat that Derek Carr wants. So I think he's going to have more value. I think he's going to be. It's anytime there's a rookie that has a breakout game, I'm always more interested in them than others. Like Claypool, I am interested in as well. But for the sake of throwing another name, is definitely Henry Ruggs, because I think one, Gruden loves him. Obviously, Gruden loves fast wide receivers. We've seen it in the past. But yeah, no, I think he's one to definitely look out for if he's still available in your league. Like I said, he's only available in 52% of leagues, so maybe not. But if he's available, he's definitely worth getting, because he's probably wide receiver 1 there with Aguilar and Renfro. They're kind of, no one's really a true wide receiver 1, so they'll all share like split coverage. So definitely worth out and go and grab.
Might I add to Travis Fulgham's stock that he is owned in 0.2% of leagues.
That does help. I do have that written down here as well.
Everybody should pick him up. He should be owned in, like, I want to see 60% of leagues.
Mm-hmm. I think, obviously, for this week, he's a pickup. I obviously made the argument. I went against all 3 of you and said he's a dud moving forward for the obvious reason of, their core receivers coming back. But, I mean, he's a great player, great guy. I hope you guys prove me wrong, but that's just how I feel.
It's always nervous with the Eagles offense, too.
Yeah, that as well. That as well.
Unless someone's out there licking poop, they're not doing well.
My guy, Chase Claypool's a no-brainer. We've talked about him for, I feel like, half the show today. So I'm going to go with another guy who I mentioned earlier. Well, Chase Claypool is my number 1. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to go with, I mentioned him earlier, Christian Kirk. I think, again, I'm basing this pick off what I said before, where just the way the season is going, you got to do whatever you got to do to win the week. Take 1 week at a time. Christian Kirk, obviously, like we said, they have a favorable schedule moving forward. Dallas this week and then Seattle, 2 of the lower end pass defenses. I think he could be a great flex play the next 2 weeks into their bye. So he's going to be my guy. And then we'll wrap up with the tight ends. Tyler, I don't think you've gone first yet. So Tyler, who's your tight end pickup of the week?
Tight ends are tough right now. I found that Hooper was available in every single one of my leagues, including a 12-man league. And I think I'm going to lean with Austin Hooper. He finally got more involved in the passing game. I know the Browns aren't going to be throwing the ball, but the past 2 games, he has 5 catches apiece, topped over 50 yards this game. That's pretty solid for a tight end. He's approaching tight end 1 area. He's ranked 19th right now. I'm sure that's going to go up a little bit. But he's a guy that they paid for as a free agent. They paid him a ton of money, so they have to look to get him involved some more. And if you're not picking up a tight end this week, though, I want everyone to take a look at kicker for the Miami Dolphins, Jason Sanders. He has absolutely popped off these past 2 weeks. He had 18 points and then 22. They play the Jets, and then they have a bye week. So tight end is not a position I'm looking at this week. I'm actually taking a kicker with a waiver pickup.
All right, and then Rob will go to you next because you went last. Who's your tight end pickup of the week?
Okay, so this guy might have been picked up last week, but a lot of people didn't because he had a bye week this week. Big old Bob Tonyan. I got to go from obviously being Robert, but no, obviously coming off a huge game, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's not if he's taking early again. Someone that's only taken in 48% of the leagues though. So over half the leagues out there, he is still available, and mostly probably because most people stream tight ends. And he even though he came off a huge game, he went straight to a bye week this week, so obviously wasn't a big name there. But yeah, no, he's coming off of 3 touchdowns on 6 receptions for 98 yards. And then the week before having 5 receptions for 50 yards and touchdown. Aaron Rodgers absolutely loves him. That offense is clicking. They're scoring a ton of points. I think pre-bye week they had the most points scored in the NFL. So there's tons of room to go around. So yeah, if he wasn't taken after his big explosion week, if he's hiding there because of the bye week, I would go out and get big old Bob Tonyan. He's actually available in our league, by the way, for anyone that needs a tight end in our league.
All right, and then Eb, that leaves you. Who's your tight end pickup of the week?
Well, I chose Trey Burton because, Phillip Rivers is the quarterback. He's constantly passing to his tight ends. He went from 2 receptions to 5 receptions he's only played 2 games. So, I think that he's going to be a guy that's moving up the target list for Phillip Rivers, and he doesn't really have anybody to throw to besides T.Y. Hilton, and he's only just now getting him involved. So, Phillip Rivers loves his tight ends. They got a bye week coming up. I expect big things from him out of the bye week.
All right, yeah, and I'm going to kind of cheat this because I'm going 4th. I'm going to go Jimmy Graham. He is owned in 53% of leagues, but he's also not owned in all the leagues. He had another 33 yards and a touchdown this week. He's got 4 touchdowns on the year. Given what we said about the Bears offense, he's a big secure target. So it's, he's someone that Nick Foles can lean on. So I'm going to pick him up if he's available in my league. So unless anyone has any other pressing waiver pickups this week, I think that'll wrap up this bit. And if anyone does have anybody they want to add, speak now or forever hold your peace. Very good.
Cheated and threw my
Andy
kicker.
Dalton. I don't think
You
that
did.
offense is going to get any worse if you just lost Dak. Go get Andy Dalton. I think that he's at least good enough to throw to 3 talented wide receivers.
Yep.
I might lean Fitzpatrick over Andy.
I'm always so
Yeah, I'd
afraid
go
of
Ryan.
Fitzmagic.
I'm
so
Magic.
They did just put up 43 points though on the 49ers defense, who is depleted, but still 43 points.
Picks. It's picks or no picks for him, so it's hard to say what's going to happen.
I guess we'll have to see and find. I'll keep track of that, and we'll see who's right in a couple weeks. But that will wrap up our content for today's episode. We want to thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're new. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Rob will have all those links below. We want to thank Brandon Eby so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super happy you came. Thank you for sharing your analysis. And I think you said you got your first win in the league this week.
Yeah, it's about time.
Tough start to the season, but it's happened before. So,
the people who start bad in our league come out on top. So be ready for me to come back through this. All right.
That is very true. We've talked about those stories before. But anyway, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, thank you for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. And until then, we will see you later.
See you.
Peace out,
Peace.
fellas.